And the story of Justice Pursued is a fascinating story, true story of two men who spent just shy of 43 years in prison for a murder that they did not commit. And they were exonerated in 2019. And it's a fascinating story on many levels. So the story the story is about two main characters, one of whom is Nathan Myers. And the picture you see is his mugshot shortly after he was arrested in 1976, and another picture right before he was exonerated. And very honored this morning to have Nathan Myers with us. Nathan was arrested when he was 18 years old, and he was a high school football star and was arrested when he was 18. He never gave up hope. He's a man of faith. He was committed to the fact that he was innocent, and he spent 43 years in just unbelievable circumstances trying to prove his innocence. What's really remarkable is that we're speaking today. Today's March 28th, and today marks to the day 5 years from the day he was let out of prison. So it's a very special day for Nathan, a very special day for the justice system in America. The other individual involved was Nathan's uncle, Clifford Booney Williams. Again, this is a picture of Clifford when he was shortly after his arrest in 1976, and again shortly before his exoneration. Unfortunately, Clifford Booney Williams passed away just about a month and a half ago. Did not make it to 5 years from his exoneration. While he was in prison, he developed a very intense case of prostate cancer, a very aggressive prostate cancer. It went undiagnosed. Nobody knew about it. He was so sick when he got out of prison that he immediately went to treatment. And unfortunately for Clifford, he spent most of his freedom time going to doctors and recovering from his illness. And again, he just passed away about a month and a half ago. So this is their story, but it's much more of a story just about them. It brings to light the whole issue of wrongful convictions and exonerations. It's a major, major issue in this country. You can look around, read every day about a new exoneration, somebody that was in prison for so many years that was let out because of either false testimony or new DNA evidence. It's a major, major thing that is making news daily. I just checked this morning, and the registry for exonerations says that since 1989, there have been more than 3,500 exonerations in this country since 1989. And look, we have a great criminal justice system in America. Our jury system is amongst the best in the world, but it's not perfect. And sometimes it just doesn't get it right. There's new technology available today. There's new DNA technology that wasn't available years ago. There are groups like the Innocence Project and some social media groups that are bringing to light this issue of wrongful convictions. And it's very positive that the justice system is taking steps to correct these problems and to let people who are innocent out of jail. So it is there is an ongoing awareness of wrongful convictions in this country. Each of these cases, each of these exonerations has a unique perspective to it. It has the individual faces, the individual characteristics of the case. This case is no different. What makes the case of Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams so unique are a couple of things. Number one, their exoneration was not as a result of a criminal defense team. In fact, it was the prosecution office that prosecuted them more than 4 decades earlier that led to their exoneration. And it happened because of something called the Conviction Integrity Review Unit. And this is a new trend among prosecutorial offices, where they are creating within their office a division to look back at past convictions to make sure that there weren't flaws in those convictions and that some mistakes didn't happen. This was the first one in the state of Florida created in the 4th Judicial Circuit in Jacksonville. And it was the very first Conviction Integrity Review Unit in Florida. And this was the first case that they reviewed. And to their credit, they're the ones that advocated for the exoneration. One of the other unique things is that their 43 years in prison at the time was the 4th longest incarceration before an exoneration in recorded history. And another irony of this particular case involves a third main character in the story, an attorney named Hank Cox. Hank is a very well-known defense attorney in Jacksonville, a former president of the Florida Bar Association. And Hank is the one who advocated for the creation of a conviction integrity unit in the Fourth Judicial Circuit. He convinced the newly elected state attorney, Melissa Nelson, that it would be good if she created this department within her district attorney's office to review these past convictions. Well, as it turns out, when they went back and looked at Clifford Williams and Nathan Myers' case, who was the prosecutor 4 decades ago? It happened to be Hank Cox. He had no idea that the first case that they would review would be his own, and he actually argued the case and advocated for the death penalty. So it created some real awkwardness and some irony, but you can read more about it in the book, but it's a fascinating sort of twist of how these things sort of, come to be. So, yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just, in the interest of time, I'm just going to sort of take you through some of the key elements of this case quickly. And I do want to have a chance for Nathan to answer some questions and maybe say a couple of words. So let me just make sure I've got this right. All right, so this is where the murder took place in downtown Jacksonville in 1976. There was a party going on where you see the white circle, and in the larger circle is where a murder took place. 2 women were in bed together, Jeanette Baldwin Williams and Nina Marshall. They were sleeping, and about 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 in the morning, some shots were fired. And the people that were partying at this other location, about 2 apartments down, heard the gunshots. And among those people at the party were Nathan Williams and Clifford Williams. Nina Marshall survived the shooting. Jeanette Williams was murdered or killed during the shooting. Nina Marshall was able to escape from leave the apartment with her wounds. She was transported to a local hospital. And at the hospital, she identified the shooters as being Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams. And she said that they both fired guns, and that was her story. But from the very beginning, the investigation in her story had many, many holes in it. The first hole was that all of the people that were at this party, and there were about 35 of them, everyone testified or gave depositions that they heard the shots when they were fired. And to a one, they all said that Clifford Williams and Nathan Myers were at the party when the shots were heard. So nobody said that they left at any time during this period. They were all there, and they all saw these 2 gentlemen at the party when the shots were heard. The other sort of conflicting testimony is that she indicated the shots were fired inside the apartment. Well, it would have been very difficult for people to hear gunshots being fired from this distance if the shots were fired inside, particularly when they're partying and there's 30 some odd people attending this party. Well, as it turns out, the detectives who were doing the investigation, their first conclusion was that the shots came from outside the apartment through a window. That was their first conclusion. But in order to justify or be consistent with Nina Marshall's testimony, they said that maybe what happened is the shooters made it look like the shots came from the outside. But there was really no evidence to indicate that the shots came from the inside, as Nina Marshall had said. Nina Marshall also said that both gentlemen fired guns. A ballistics report showed that only 1 gun was fired, not 2. And both Clifford Williams and Nathan Myers had no evidence of any gunpowder residue shortly after they were arrested. So there were numerous inconsistencies with her story, but nevertheless, Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams were arrested for murder and attempted murder about 2 hours after the shooting, based on Nina Marshall's identification. They go to trial, and the first trial actually ended in a mistrial. And after the mistrial, Nathan was offered a plea deal by the prosecution to testify against his uncle, which basically said that we will let you out of prison in 2 to 5 years if you will testify against your uncle. And Nathan's response was, we didn't do anything, I'm not going to take that deal, which took a lot of nerve, knowing that he was potentially facing the death penalty. So in the trial, and what's interesting about this, and what again makes it sort of significant, is that we're all familiar with how trials work today in a traditional courtroom. At the end of the trial, the prosecution gets up and makes a closing argument. The defense team then gets up and makes their argument, and the prosecution gets the last word before the jury. Well, back in the 70s, there was a practice that was allowed in Florida. It's no longer allowed. but it's a practice that was allowed that allowed the defense team to have the last argument before the jury, the last statement before the jury. But there was a catch. If the defense team was going to make the last statement before the jury, they could present no witnesses, present any evidence. The only witness that they could call would be the defendant themselves. They were not allowed to call any witnesses. So the attorneys representing Nathan Myers and Clifton Williams opted for this last word strategy. So as a result, none of the forensic evidence, none of the 35 witnesses who all gave depositions that they heard the shots, none of the ballistics that showed that one gun was fired, none of the evidence that there was no gunpowder residue, none of it was ever presented in the trial. The only person, the case was solely based on Nina Marshall's eyewitness identification of the shooters. This practice is no longer allowed in Florida. It was turned over, I think, in 2006 and ratified by the Florida Supreme Court that said you can't do that. And it was opposed by, as you can imagine, it was opposed by prosecution offices and victim advocates because they felt it was an unfair situation. So based on that strategy, the trial took 2 days. The jury took less than 2 hours. And Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams were convicted, and they were given life sentences. However, the judge in the case overruled the jury and gave Clifford Williams the death penalty and Nathan Myers a life sentence. So Clifford Williams actually spent 5 years on death row for a murder that he did not do. The Supreme Court overruled his death sentence, they actually ratified the conviction, but changed the death penalty sentence to life in prison. And so as a result, these two gentlemen spent 4 decades in prison. I can't go into all the details of what happened during those 4 decades, but you can only imagine. Translates to 15,000 days, more than 15,000 days. The terms of 8 presidents these gentlemen spent in the Florida prison system. And the stories within that prison system are just horrendous. The things that they went through, their appeals were denied. They really had no representation, and they were really floundering in terms of any hope for any kind of release or relief. Nathan Myers never gave up hope, though. He was a man of faith. He believed in his innocence, and he was determined that one day he would see freedom. Fast forward to from 1976 to 2016. There's an election in Jacksonville, Florida. A new state attorney is elected, Melissa Nelson. And one of the first things that she does is she creates this conviction integrity review unit within her office to go look at cases, past cases. And it had never been done in Florida. It had been done in other parts of the country. And it was not really well received initially within the prosecutor's office because they're saying, what are we doing here? Why are we looking at these past convictions? But prosecutors have an ethical responsibility, as all lawyers, to seek justice. And so Melissa Nelson, to her credit, created this unit, and they began soliciting petitions. And the first petition that they looked at that really seemed to have some credibility was that of Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams. And so as a result of their taking this case on, they began their own reinvestigation of the case. And they did a number of experiments, a number of interviews. And among the things that they did were they interviewed people that were still around 40 years later that were in the neighborhood. And every single one of them still said that these two gentlemen were at the party. Nobody saw them leave. And they still have very vivid memories of that. So they did interview people that were still around. They also conducted some sound experiments that showed that if you fired a gun inside that apartment, as Nina Marshall had alleged, you could not hear it if you were inside the apartment where the party was being held. Yet they fired shots from outside near the window where the speculation is that that's where the shooting occurred. You could hear those shots very clearly from inside the apartment. They also did some tests. Let me see if I can get this up here. This shows you the proximity of where the shooting took place. This is an aerial view. And this is Nina Marshall's version of the story. When she says this is the bedroom, she says that Nathan and Clifford walked in the door of the bedroom, went to the foot of the bed, both of them fired shots, and then they exited out. Well, in recreating the bedroom, which the state attorney's office did, they recreated the bedroom. there really wasn't much room for these two gentlemen to come in and maneuver like that. The other thing was that if you were going to kill two individuals, why would you walk in this crowded bedroom, walk all the way to the foot of the bed and bang, bang, shoot, and then walk out when you could have just walked it right through the door and fired the shots? So the story never really made sense. In addition, in reinvestigating this case, the conviction integrity unit could not come up with any way that the trajectory of the bullets could have been fired in this direction. All of their tests indicated that most likely it was possible that those bullets could have come from the outside window through the window screen. And so that gave them more confidence that the shooting took place outside, not inside, as Nina Marshall had alleged. And let's see here. This is they also tried to replicate the damage to the screen. I apologize for these slides being a little blurry, but 1976, that was the damage to the window. What they did is they tried to see if they could create the same hole by firing shots outside at point blank range, and they were able to replicate the same tear hole that was in those in the window screen. Which again, not in and of itself, but the collectiveness of all this information seemed to indicate that these gentlemen were innocent. This is an autopsy photo of two of the bullet wounds, and as you can see in the larger circled one, it's sort of dispersed, which is further indication that the bullet came into contact with something else, the window screen, part of the window, before it hit the victim, Jeanette Williams. So based on all of that, the State Attorney's Office Conviction Integrity Unit began really believing in the innocence of these two gentlemen. In addition, while they were doing their investigation, it came to light that another man had confessed to the murder. Another gentleman who was a known drug dealer in the area confessed to several people within this circle that he was the one that had done the shooting and that he shot from outside the window. He certainly wasn't going to go to the police. And again, none of the people that he confessed to went to law enforcement. You ask why? Well, because you have to understand the culture of the time. People were scared. You know, snitches end up in ditches. And so people kept this information very close to the vest. But after this person who confessed had passed away and the state attorney's office began reinvestigating, they came forward and indicated that yes, this other individual had confessed to the shooting. So based on all of this information, the Conviction Integrity Unit concluded that there was credible evidence of innocence and that had the jury been made aware of the evidence back in 1976 that was known now, that they never would have convicted these two individuals. And so based on this, it went before a judge, and 5 years ago today, the judge exonerated both Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams and dismissed all charges against them after 43 years in prison. It was a landmark case. It's the first time in Florida history that a murder conviction had been overturned based on the advocacy of a prosecutor's office. This was not a defense team that came to their defense. Eventually, they incorporated the Innocence Project and some defense counsel to help them with the case, but it was initiated by the prosecutor's office. So they get released from prison, and it's not all over. You can imagine what life must be like if you've been in jail for 43 years, and Nathan can certainly speak to that. But they will also do compensation. And so there's Florida has a wrongful conviction compensation act that allows for $50,000 a year of compensation for every year you're in prison. Well, $50,000 is not a lot of money for spending each of those years in prison. But they both received compensation. Wasn't as simple as it might have seemed. Clifford Williams, who had a felony conviction, was not eligible for the money. He had to go to the Florida House of Representatives and the Senate to get a special claims law passed on his behalf. And Nathan, who had no previous convictions, was entitled to the money, but the Attorney General's office initially said he wasn't entitled to it because he didn't prove his innocence. That got overturned by the same Attorney General's office, and he received his compensation as well. But time getting back into life, time getting back into regular life has been a struggle. Nathan remains an advocate for juveniles. He speaks to groups. He's committed to his faith, his family, and to making the world a better place and making the most of his time. And again, unfortunately, Clifford Williams has since passed. So that in a nutshell is sort of the story of this exoneration. It's a fascinating story with a lot more twists and turns, a lot more little issues that happened. And of course, their time in prison is really something to behold. So I don't know, Nathan, would you want to maybe say a couple of words, or Nathan's happy to answer some questions. I'm happy to answer some questions. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I think we're in pretty good shape. So any questions or for myself or for Nathan? This is a picture of them when they are first hearing about the exoneration from the judge. This is their picture, this sigh of relief that they have been freed.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Myers, for joining our meeting. Was whatever happened to the victim slash liar about, who supposedly ID'd them?
You know, this was a community of drug users and, gang activity. She sort of vanished off the face of the earth. I believe that they found her homeless at some point. The Conviction Integrity Unit tried to locate some of her family. They were unable to do so. And she passed away. No one really knows what happened to her, other than the fact that she kind of disappeared off the planet. One little tidbit: in between the two trials after the mistrial, Nathan was released on bond for a period of time. And he went to a local tavern in Jacksonville, and who walks into that tavern but Nina Marshall? Nathan says he had to do everything under his control to control himself. And to this day, he believes that she was sent there by the prosecutor's office or by someone to see what his next move would be. And to his credit, he left the bar, called his attorney. His attorney said, "Get out away from there, as far away from there as you can." And that was it. So, other questions, comments?
Mr. Myers, I'd like to say anything?
Good afternoon, Nathan Myers.
Use the mic.
Sorry, I have to put it in my hand. I got it. Name Nathan Myers. I was born in Duval County. I went to school at Samuel Junior Senior High. I graduated in 1975. I made all city there. I had a scholarship from Georgia Tech in Mississippi. 1975, I graduated. 1976, a year later, I was in jail for something I didn't do. Same year, 1976, I was sent to prison for the first time ever. It was hard, but it was fair. Because I always believe that things happen for a reason. And they say if you don't have God in the midst of your life will never be no good. So I went into prison. My sister was an evangelist. I went into prison, I tried everything. I mean, I would have did everything to get out of prison. I changed my religions. I started practicing Islam. My sister stepped to me one day in the middle of the said, "Boy, is you crazy?" I said, "What you mean is I'm crazy?" She said, "You weren't born as no Muslim. You was a Christian." She said, "You're not gonna never get out of prison." I said, "Oh, you against me now?" She said, "No, baby boy." She said, "You never get out of prison because you no turn against your faith. So you're supposed to be loving Jesus Christ." I looked at her. I went back to my dorm. Took my hair, cooped on, got my rug, got my Quran, rolled it up. Monday morning, I was in the mail room. I sat out. I started going to church. And it seemed like everything just went to falling off. Everything. All my problems, all my worries. you know? And I was a young kid, 18 years old. Thanks, I had to go and become a man on my own. I wasn't taught how to be a man. Anybody woke me up and say, this is what you got to do to be a man. I had to learn, look at things on my own and watch other men to become a man. That's how I made it through prison. I started making myself useful. I started getting involved in things. You know, some people look at prison bad, but it's really not bad because you got so much things going on in there where you can elevate yourself. You know, there are so many vocational. You can have college courses in there. You know, people come in there and that care about you, try to help you, and it's all up to you. And like I tell them, I don't care what nobody say. If you don't want to do it, they're gonna get beat. It's just simple as that. I don't care who come and talk to you. You got to have it right there to want to change your life. And that's what I did. My mother, boy, God bless her. She died in 2012. And she was with me from day one. The night I got arrested and getting ready to put me in that police car, she was holding the door. So where y'all carrying him at? She wouldn't want them to put me in the police car. From that day to the day she died, she was with me. And because of her, that's kept me fighting. That was my strength, my mother. I wanted to come home to her. Because unfortunately, she didn't live long enough. You know, I lost my whole family, my brother, my sister, my dad, my grandma, granddad. All I got was a few little bit of nieces and nephews. They really don't know me. They heard about me, but they beginning to get to know me. You know, I love them all. You know, my thing is taking our future, the kids. The little kids out there in our future. They dying off so fast. We need to help them. We getting old. Like I told my niece, I said, I'm getting old. We had a funeral at my uncle's funeral. I said, look around at him. We were sitting in the Golden Grill eating. I said, look around at him. How many men do y'all see him? He looked around, it was 4 of us. All the men dying off. How many women? Oh man, they were loaded. I told them, take care of us. Like I say, gentlemen, it was a hard thing for me, but the strength for the Lord, Jesus Christ, that what kept me going, man. Thinking about my mother every day. Now the best thing that was closer to me after her was my uncle. People wondering, did you ever spend time with your uncle? I said, yeah, I had to tell the few lies and get to see him. We never was in the same prison together. He always was in one prison, I was in another. But we had to lie in order to get to see each other. I was in UCI, he was in FSP. They had to come from FSP to UCI to get to the medical. He's always hollering like he's sick. So they had to bring him over there to see the doctor. So I used to go up there to the movement center where they had to bring him back, do something dumb and stupid, make the officer put me inside the holding cell. So they locked me in the holding cell, but I know what day he coming. So by the time he get there, I'm already sitting there waiting on him. So we get in there, we get there, talk, keep the bubble around, talking about it all the time. That's the time we get a chance to see each other. But other than that, we stayed away. Everywhere he went, I came behind. They never let us in the same as a teacher together. They never did that. And we found a guy, got in that county jail, that's when we come to, got in the same cell together in the county jail on the way out. You know, and hey man, the man, how he was so beautiful to people. I tell everybody love Boone. Real name Clifford Williams, but we call him Boone. Everybody love him, but the Lord. the law hated him. But he did some good things for a lot of people. A lot of people love him. You know, and that kind of inspired me to help people also, because things that he was doing. So, you know, blessed to be out here. You know, it was hard to adjust. Good thing I had some people that really, really were close to me, helping me to adjust. Man, wow, 14 years, coming to a world of change. It was a trip. I got lost so many times. I mean, in Jacksonville, where I was raised up, because it'll change so many streets in one way. And everywhere I go, say one way, or I gotta go the other way. I get lost. I was so embarrassed to call somebody, I take it out and get back where I was going when I got back. You know what I'm saying? I always remember, go back the same way you came. You know, got here. My wife right now, the day tells you sure you know where you're going? I don't know how to use GPS yet. I'm trying to learn. But, I'm just real good. You know, I'm meeting a lot of people, meeting a lot of kids. You know, I've become a deacon of the church, you know. I'm trying to take care of things, right? You know, like I say, why would you want to go back to a place that God moved you out of? You got to be crazy. So, any questions?
So when you got out and you were observing the world around you, what was the most surprising in maybe a good way or in a disappointing way that you saw how things changed since you left?
Well, one thing when I went shopping, that was one of the weirdest things in the world that I had on me, because I was like paranoid. Because I go into shopping, you know how they have them officers, guards and stuff around, and they like watching me. My wife, she had a habit. When she opened her bucket up, she put her purse inside the bucket. So when she shopping, she just throw things up there. I'm watching, I think, you know, hold up here. She said, what are you talking about? I said, you got your bag on people, let me put stuff in the bag, let me shop with it. She said, boy, you going crazy, you paranoid. Ain't nobody thinking nothing like that but you. You know what I'm saying? Which I was, you know, and but trying to understand people really, because like I tell a lot of people, the respect that we had for our mother, father, and elder people during my years, I don't see the elder people getting that now, you know, and it's bad. You know, I don't see nobody trying to help teach the younger kids to do the right thing. You know, just like the dude telling me, because I go back into prison, the dude telling me in the prison, man, you know what, this guy here is 50 and 60 years old, they acting stupid in the 18 and 19 years old kids. You know what I'm saying? So they're trying to still be young. And I tell them all, man, sit your butt down, because time will pass by you, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Sit back and let your kids have their time. UCI was the #2 rated bad place in the state of Florida at prison. FSP was #1. That's when they had the first death row. UCI was as bad as people say it was. It always was a lot of fights. It wasn't gangs in prison like they are now. And if you mind your business in prison, you won't have no problem. You people around the corner telling the police everything what's going on, you're gonna have a problem. You know, inside prison is just like outside prison. The same thing out here is in there. The same thing. The only thing in there that they don't have that we have out here, real women. You know, so they have fake men and the one that mess with them, you know what I'm saying? They have fake men for that purpose. But drugs, you make your own alcohol, you know, so all that stuff in prison. You know, and see a lot of guys have fun. Drinking a little wine, smoking a little weed, selling it, hustling, you know, so having fun. But when you go to tell them what they're doing, and they know you're doing that, you're gonna get hurt sometime. If they don't kill you, you're gonna wish you was dead. They throw lighter fluid on you, burn you up. They mix up acid, burn you up. they stick you. I was in Crow City, no, I was in Washington, CI. When guys go to recreation, they have to tie a belt with books around their waist to cover their ribs up. Cause when they go through that gate, you don't know who's gonna get stuck. You might come try to hit you in the rib. If you got them books there, you smile. They miss you that time. But they do that. So prison really is dangerous unless you mind your business, doing your own thing. See, they respect you if you mind your business doing your own thing. But when you're in their business, everybody's gonna know you're in their business. So that's what the hard part was really about. You say, I enjoy doing time there. Because the officers in old school, they don't jug at you like these little jitterbugs up in these panhandle want to jump on you and, you know, the handcuff you and stuff like that. But like I said, prison will be an education to a person that who want to get education to get out of there. You get your GED there. You get a degree in there through college classes. But it's what you make it.
Jim, thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing everything.
Anyway, Bruce has some books up here. Nathan is pretty much dominated in the book, but if you're interested in that or you have any more questions, Bruce is gonna stick around for doing that. Nathan, thank you so much for being here.